Good evening, everybody. It is December 4th, 2023. We are man coverage. We are talking college football. Big weekend that just surpassed us. We had the conference championships come and go. We had the committee selection. And I think that's where we need to start, James. I think we need to talk the playoff. I honestly wasn't surprised. I watched Florida State play against Florida. I watched Florida State play against Louisville. I honestly think Florida State, they may have taken them if Louisville had looked better. I think that hurt them. And I think just their offense being horrible hurt them in the selection process. Now, that doesn't make it fair. That doesn't make it right. But, we come out of it. We got Michigan at 1. We've got Washington at 2. We've got Texas at 3 and Bama at 4. James, what do you think about A, the 4 teams that made it, and B, the seeding? Let's talk that first. Let's talk about the 4 teams that made it. Do you think these teams are all worthy? And what do you think about the seeding 1 through 4?
Well, worthy and do they belong in are really 2 separate conversations.
Well, we'll get into the stubs.
Yeah.
We'll get into the stubs next. I just want to talk about these 4 teams. Should they be here? Is there anyone who you think shouldn't be here? And what do you think about the way they seeded them?
I think Bama should be out. And you can make an argument for Texas. Honestly, I think Florida State and Ohio State should be in. But if of the remaining 4, yeah, this is how I'd seed it.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I mean, honestly, what this basically told me is the body of work, what games don't matter. And the body of work, Florida State deserves to be in. I mean, hell, you want to look at common opponents. Let's talk about LSU and Alabama. All right? LSU played both of these teams. If Jaden Daniels doesn't get hurt, LSU could have won that game.
Yes.
And Florida State took LSU to the woodshed. Now, they're going to come back and say, well, Florida State played them in Orlando, and that was the beginning of the season. What did he freaking do? LSU played Alabama in Alabama. I mean, do common opponents matter? I mean, hell, you look at freaking New Mexico State. Beat the ever-living piss out of Auburn. And Bama needed a gravedigger to win the game. And yet Bama gets in. I mean, why not quality of wins too?
Yeah, I'm very confused as to the clarifications need to be made between what the I know they put the list up there on why they were picking these teams and what went into it, but it doesn't seem to me like they stuck to it. My question is, why on earth does Texas get so much credit for beating Oklahoma State and winning the Big 12, but then Florida State gets no credit for winning their conference and beating Louisville, who honestly, Louisville looked like garbage in that game, as I told you 50 times while I was watching it, but I still take Louisville probably over Oklahoma State. Well, so I'm just very confused as to why Texas gets so much credibility when A, they lost to Oklahoma on a neutral field earlier in the year, and then B, they beat a crappy Oklahoma State team who I thought was overrated towards the end of the year. This is the same team that lost to South Alabama 33-7.
Yeah, and got curb stomped by UCF. How is it that they get credit for 2 teams that got curb stomped by UCF, who's not going to a bowl game, and South Alabama, yet beating the crap out of Oklahoma State gives them credibility? Yeah, did they look good? Yeah, they should have. But, and then Bama gets in by beating Georgia. Let's be honest. Offensively, that was not a good game at all. Between Georgia and Bama did not play well offensively at all.
No.
And Alabama was the better team. Georgia fans are going to cry a conspiracy. I'm sorry, you don't deserve to be in, and you didn't. I mean, the only reason you got ranked as high as you did is because you were back-to-back national champions and you were on a streak. But you
Yeah.
didn't deserve to be there from the jump.
Yeah, this Georgia team, in my estimation, was not as solid as the last 2 years. I mean, I just
Yeah.
don't think I just don't think that they were as good as the last 2 years, especially on defense. You think about the last 2 years, or just the defensive line in general. I mean, Devontae Wyatt, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith. I mean, the
Quay
edge
Walker.
guys, Quay Walker, Trayvon Walker. Quay Walker's more of a middle linebacker, but Trayvon Walker, the end. I mean, with the linebackers too. I mean,
Yeah.
The safeties. I mean, just they were NFL players galore. I watched this Georgia team, and me and you both like the safety 22, but
Bullard. Yeah.
Bullard, thank you. But I'm not in love really with anybody else.
No.
On this defense.
No, not at all. I mean, the strength of that team is their defensive backfield.
Yes.
And I mean, you can't say that about the past three Georgia teams. The strength was their front seven. And I mean, Georgia has no business being in this game, and then turn around, put them in the Peach Bowl against Florida State. I mean, you want motivation for Florida State? You just gave it to them. And I mean, Florida State's defense played balls out against Louisville. I mean, granted, the quarterback situation was, I mean, they did the best with what they could do. I mean, let's be honest. How many snaps is that guy getting in practice? Next to none?
0. I mean, he was not prepared to play, and nor should he be. He's the third stringer. But I just don't, I don't understand, what Louisville was doing. I mean, they looked so inept on offense. I mean, they got the ball several times inside the 20 and couldn't get any points.
Yeah.
And then, they knew that Florida State was going to run the football. I mean, even when the quarterback was out there, he was handing it off. And half the time they split him out and ran the Wildcat, and they still couldn't stop it. So, I think it shows us that maybe Louisville wasn't quite as good as maybe we thought they were. And B, Florida State was solid, both defensively and also, with their skill guys. I mean, the way that they won those games against Florida and Louisville was impressive to me.
Yeah.
I think that the committee took a hard look at that quarterback position and was like, who's going to want to watch Florida State, run it 30 times? And can Florida State, keep up with these other three teams without being able to throw the football?
Yeah.
And, I get all that, but still, it just makes a mockery of the whole thing when this team goes undefeated, wins their conference, and then just gets left out because their quarterback's hurt. I mean, I know he's hurt, but I think the backup. Neither one of us really like Rodemaker, but I think he would give them a better chance than what we saw on Saturday, right?
Well, what's going to stop a school like Florida State saying, well, Jordan Travis? I mean, everybody saw the injury. Everybody saw him get carted off. But they could have kept quiet on the surgery and said, he's week to week. He's only going to be out for a few weeks. He could be back for the bowl game. If that was the case with Florida State gotten in, hell yeah. You and I both know they would have put him in there. But it's just it's crap. They wanted to put an SEC school in there. And I'm sorry, this Bama team, I got to give probably the best coaching job I've seen out of Saban, because the receiving core compared to past receiving cores isn't that great. Their running game, it's okay for Bama standards, but downgraded usually. Offensive line is playing better now, but it's been schizophrenic. I mean, them getting the CFP is remarkable considering the talent level they have on this roster.
I agree. I mean, me and you have talked about it ad nauseum the last few weeks. This is not the best Bama team that I've seen, just skill position defensively. Yeah. The defense has gotten better. And, I like Downs, the safety, and I like, Turner and some of those guys. But Georgia was running the football at will on this team, and the fact that they were able to win this game, I think, shows how great Nick's. I mean, we know Nick Saban's great. We know he's the best coach of all time, but I just think it was on full display in this SEC championship game. And not that Kirby's not a good coach, because he's proven to be one, but he's 0-3 versus Nick Saban in the SEC championship game. I mean, that's a fact, bro. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that. But I do, let's talk about these teams for a second. We just talked about Bama. Let's talk about Texas. How do you think they match up with Washington? Me and you both like Washington. They've proven to be a solid team all around. We both like their coach. They've won every game. They won their conference championship. They did something that I think is very, very difficult to do, and that's beat the same team twice.
Yeah.
Once on the road and then another time on a neutral site. So, I like what Washington's doing. What do you think about how Texas matches up with them, and who do you think wins that game between the two of them?
I mean, honestly, buckle up, because I think this is a high-scoring affair. I mean, I haven't seen what the over-under on this game is, but honestly, I wouldn't be a bit surprised unless it's like 70. I'm taking the over, because, I mean, both these teams' weaknesses are the other team's strengths. 64.5 right now. 64.5. I'm sorry, that's incredibly low, because you look at Texas's defensive backfield, it's pedestrian at best, and you're going up against three receivers who are NFL receivers in McMillan, Odunze, and Polk. I mean, Dylan Johnson's done a hell of a job, but you give them a month to heal and a month for Kalen DeBoer to put together an offensive game plan. Yeah, I like Washington. They're not going to run the ball against that defensive line, which for Texas, which is outstanding. If Jordan Brooks was healthy, I may lean to Texas. But right now, I'm leaning Washington, which isn't the fan favorite move. I mean, the thing I'd be most upset if I'm a Washington fan is I got to go to freaking Baton Rouge to play a Texas team that's maybe, 4-5 hour drive away? And they're the home team, yet they're on the road.
Yeah, that never seems to make sense to me. I was still trying to figure out how, Georgia got to play a home game last year and then gets to play a home game in the SEC championship game every year. I mean, that to me is
and then they get a home game at the Peach Bowl.
I know. It's like,
I mean,
what can we do to make sure that they win? I mean, I don't get that, but I do like what I've seen out of Washington as of late. They had some struggles coming down the stretch a little bit, but they seem to overcome those struggles, and they seem to bounce back from whatever was kind of ailing them. They had a couple of close games, as we talked about, against especially that first half against Utah, kind of blew me away by how much their defense got rolled over.
Yeah.
But the defense played great against Oregon, I thought, and really, kind of stopped what Dan Lanning and the Bo Nix and what the Oregon Ducks like to do. They weren't able to do it all game. And I feel like the Washington defense is a little bit underrated. I mean, they're not the most dominant team, but with an offense like that, they can play complementary football because they can at times get stops. And me, that D lineman, number 91, he is a force to be reckoned with. And there's a big difference when he's on the field and when he's off it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I look at, if I'm Texas right now, game planning for this game and how to stop Washington, I would really watch to see who Washington puts in the slot. And I can almost guarantee if that receiving core, especially Odunze, who's got 3 drops all year. I mean, I was listening to a podcast last night, which is going to fire you up a little bit as soon as I say this, but they were talking about Biletnikoff. And there are people out there that are going to vote for Rome Odunze for the Biletnikoff winner over Marvin Harrison Jr.
I understand that, but I think I think some folks might vote for McMillan too.
Yeah.
And that might take some votes away. I mean, if you look at the highest graded wide receivers from championship weekend, Jalen McMillan was tops.
Yeah.
And he's the real deal too. And I think him getting healthy has helped that offense get back on track.
Well, 100%. I mean, honest to God, I mean, it's one thing having 2 NFL ready receivers. When you have 3, I mean, look at LSU during their heyday. Look at Bama during the Lane Kiffin era. I mean, hell, they had 4. If you just have 3, you're deadly, because not many teams in the country have 3 cornerbacks that can line up head to head against that receiving core. And we all know what Mike Penix can do in given time.
He's proven to me that he can do pretty much everything. You know, he is he's got ice water in his veins. First off, he never he wants the ball in his hands. He never gets flustered. I mean, I've said it time and time again. I saw this kid when he played for Indiana, and I watched him go toe to toe with Ohio State. I watched him beat Michigan. I watched him beat Penn State. And, you know, that play where he dove in the end zone against Penn State, I will never forget that.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there going, man, I'm watching Indiana football at its best right here. I mean, it reminded me about the Anthony Thompson days back in 1987, which was the last time that I can recall Indiana being good at football. And, you know, that's what I remember about this kid. And I didn't know how it would go in Washington. You know, I mean, it's a real different program going from Indiana to going to Washington Huskies. And I thought it would work. I hoped it would work for his sake. But we didn't know, James, whether he would be healthy or not.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his biggest knock, was staying healthy and staying on the field. And for whatever reason, you know, Penix had trouble doing that. But he's been healthy all year long. You know, one of the things that I really appreciated about him in that Pac-12 championship game was he took off and ran a couple of times when he had to, and that's not his strength. But you know, Penix to me is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire college football, and he's perfect for this offense. I mean, I just feel like they can beat Texas because I feel more confident with Penix not, you know, maybe making a mistake or two, but just not making the mistake that's going to cost his team the game. I feel more confident with him than I do Quinn Ewers. What do you think?
Well, not only that, they don't have to rely on. I mean, Dylan Johnson's carried a huge load in the last 6 games, and this is a game they don't have to rely on him. If they get that receiving core healthy, that helps them because they can spread the ball out and go after those receivers. I mean, Texas is going to need to get Xavier Worthy healthy, and because they've got a dynamic receiving core too as well. Is it as good as Washington's? No. But, I mean, this is going to be a high-scoring game because if you give Sark and Kalen DeBoer some time to crank something up, you know they're going to come up with a strategy that is going to be freaking crazy to deal with. And honestly, I could see either one of those teams winning. They could go on and win the national championship because, I mean, heck, you look at both Bama and Michigan, both of them have negatives against those 2 teams. I mean, especially Michigan, Bama against Texas, because they're going to want to run the ball. What's the best strength that Texas has is those D tackles. It's hard to run on them.
Yeah, true that. And that's one of the questions I had for you about this college football playoff and looking at the other game, Michigan, Bama. We both know that Michigan's going to want to come out and run the football.
Yeah.
This is not the best run defense that Nick Saban has had. You know, are they capable of stopping Michigan? Because I think if they can stop Michigan from running it, you know, then they have the upper hand in this game, you know, without even considering it. What do you think about the run defense for Alabama against Michigan?
Well, I look at this as, you know, that he didn't get the credit in the Ohio State game, but really I thought their unsung MVP of that game was Colston Loveland, their tight end, who had 5, 6, 7 catches that all got first downs, that were all between the hashes. He's very good in the middle of that defense to really extend plays. And when you have to keep him in mind on any play action pass, they're going to have to lighten up the load for that defensive line and allow them to run the ball. Now, my biggest issue with Michigan was that loss of Zach Zenner in the game against Ohio State was a big deal. I mean, he was a vital part of that offensive line. And that's going to be a big key because that offensive line has really carried this team the last 3 years. It's not J.J. McCarthy. It's not their running game. The running game is predicated by how good that offensive line runs. I mean, heck, was it 1 or 2 touchdowns away and Blake Corum is the all-time touchdown leader in Michigan history? Would you have ever guessed that? Because I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I would guess it. That guy scores touchdowns like it will, and you put last year together with this year, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's not 10 up. Honestly, because he's a touchdown scoring machine. But I just don't know if Michigan has enough. I mean, if the Bama offense gets rolling, I'm just not sure that Michigan can keep up with them. This is not a team that's just been throwing points up there. I mean, if you look at the games against Penn State, you look at the game against Ohio State, if they get to 30, that's just huge for them. I don't see them getting to 30 in this game, and I don't know if you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, the key is going to be just containing Jalen Milroe. And that defensive line is by far the best that Alabama's going to play all year. No questions asked. Will Johnson's got to get healthy in this game because if that happens, it's going to really make Jalen Milroe run. And we already know how the safeties from Michigan can come downhill. But if Will Johnson's not healthy, they're going to have to keep those safeties back.
Yeah, there is absolutely no doubt about that. And I'm very, very interested to see what Milroe can do against that Michigan defense. I've been impressed with him all year long. He's answered the challenge. If you go back, I know some people are pissed that Bama's in it, but I feel like they're in it because of the way that Milroe has propelled that offense. And we weren't in love with any of their skill guys, but he's made them all look better and made that offense roll the last several weeks. And I don't know if you remember, but I recall, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, people wanted to bench Jalen Milroe. And I don't think anybody wants him on the bench anymore. Do you?
Honestly, if it wasn't for Jaden Daniels, you could make an argument that Jalen Milroe should be sitting in New York for the Heisman ceremonies. Because
he may be.
He has done more for that. I mean, you take him off that roster, I mean, what do you think the record is? Because it sure as hell ain't this.
Well,
maybe
8-4,
7-5.
Look at the first half against South Florida.
Yeah,
and that's what this team would look like without Jalen Milroe.
I mean, I can think of a bunch of games they would have lost, including Georgia, including Auburn. I mean, go down the freaking list. They would have lost to LSU. I mean, it's Jalen Milroe has far exceeded expectations in my eyes, and I was a doubter.
Yep. Well, I loved him, and I loved his athletic ability, but I just thought he needed some time, and I was very concerned towards the beginning of the season because people were ready to dump him, and he was getting so much criticism that it could have gone one of two ways.
Yeah,
it could have gotten worse. He could have completely lost his confidence and fallen apart, or he could have done what he did, which was man up and want to prove everybody wrong. And he did prove everybody wrong. I mean, he was the best. This is what I told you about that when we talked about the Georgia, Alabama SEC championship game. I said, well, I'm picking Bama because Jalen Milroe is the best player. He is the most explosive athlete on the field. He is the best quarterback. Not that Carson Beck is horrible, but if I'm talking about a game where I need someone to win me the game, I'm putting my ball in Jalen Milroe's hands every time. And I'm not just talking about Bama. I'm talking about, pretty much any team. I mean, I put him up there with Penix. I put him up there with the kid from LSU and Bo Nix and, Jaden Daniels, all those guys. I mean, he's right there. And I think, he should be invited to New York. If we're going to make it a quarterback award, then he should be up there because he's one of the best quarterbacks. And I think Milroe was underestimated at the beginning of the season. People were forgetting that this was his first time being a starter, full-time starter. I know he started a couple games last year when Bryce was banged up, but that's a lot of pressure to put on some kid's shoulders. It's win a national championship or bust, and he knew that coming in. And some things didn't go his way. They lost to Texas, but, it's looked real good since then.
No, I agree. I completely agree.
So anyway, let's talk about the snubs, okay? We talked about the teams that are in: Michigan, Washington, Texas, Bama. Let's talk about for a minute the teams that are out. We already talked about Florida State, why they're out. Everyone knows why. Their quarterback isn't playing. The offense is hard to watch, and I think the committees looked at that and was just like, we can't put them in because we don't think they can hang with anybody offensively. Defensively, they can certainly hold teams down, but if they hold the teams, like, let's say we put Florida State at 3 and then they've got to play Washington, can they hold Washington to 17 points, 14 points? I don't think so. And I believe that's why Florida State is out. Why do you think that Georgia's out? Besides the soft schedule, is that the only reason, or do you think, or what do you think? I want to know, if a Georgia fan's on the line right now asking us why, their team isn't in this Final Four, what do you tell them?
Honestly, it's funny you mentioned that because I was literally thinking about that while we were sitting here. The only thing I could think of is the committee made conference championships as the end-all be-all. And since Georgia didn't win the conference championship, they're odd man out. Well, if they somehow snuck in and Ohio State didn't, wouldn't Ohio State have a legitimate beef because they played a harder schedule? They lost to a number one team at their place, not in the conference championship game, which was practically a home game for freaking Georgia. And so the committee just looked at the final 5 teams and said Florida State would be the one that got beat. Jordan Travis doesn't get hurt. I think Alabama goes kicking.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's what it came down to personally.
Yeah, I do too. And it's just, as I mentioned, that's what really bothers me about this whole thing is they put so much emphasis, in my opinion, on these conference championship games, and then they just ignore, Florida State's championship. I think it says a lot about the ACC conference.
Yes.
As I mentioned to you, I felt like, Louisville being that second team and then looking that bad, I think that hurt Florida State because I think it was a reflection of the conference itself. I think if you put Clemson, a 10-1 Clemson team or a 10-2 Clemson team in that championship game and had a good showing from Clemson, but maybe Florida State edged it out, well, then I think maybe Florida State's got a better argument and a better chance of getting in. But I just feel like the ACC was down this year. I mean, UNC fell apart. NC State wasn't as good as a lot of people thought they were going to be. Duke had to deal with a lot of injuries and was definitely a weaker team towards the end of the season. Clemson, lost 4 games. They played better towards the end of the year, but they lost 4 games, so that is what it is. What is your feeling right now about the ACC conference, and what do you feel like Florida State and teams like Clemson and Florida State are thinking about when they watch these other teams get in and see their own conference champ not make it?
I think Graham Neff and Michael Alford. Alford's the AD at Florida State. Graham Neff's the AD at Clemson. Are having some sidebar conversations about leaving the ACC. Plain and simple. If I'm Mike Alford, not going to lie, first call would be to up to the Big Ten office in Chicago and see what can we do to get in your conference. And do you think the Big Ten's going to say no to that, to take the Big Ten network into the Florida TV markets? They'd welcome them in a heartbeat. And you and I both know Notre Dame would be the final the final axe to drop, and the Big Ten is now the Big 20. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. You bring in Florida State, you bring in Notre Dame, and I feel like that mega conference is complete. Am I crazy in thinking that?
I mean, the SEC would be freaking crazy if they think they could match money dollar for dollar in TV revenue with what the Big Ten could bring out. The number of eyes you are going to get is going to be astro freaking nomical. Now, do I feel bad for the players? Absolutely. Because do you think players in Florida State are looking forward to that 8 o'clock Pacific Coast time kickoff in Seattle and then have to fly all the way across the country to, get back in time for class on Monday? Hell no. But This is going to be about money.
Yeah, it's always about money. And I just feel like if you're really trying to build the ultimate mega conference, which is what's going on right now, I feel like, that's the next step. I mean, the Big Ten's already added USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon. I mean, those are 4 huge teams with, the Los Angeles market, the Seattle market, I don't know what kind of market Oregon's got, but I do know that they've got a huge following for their football program that's nationwide. So that's big time. And I feel like if you want to cap it, that's the way to cap it. You bring in Florida State. I think you bring in Notre Dame if you can. Maybe if you can't, maybe you bring in Clemson too. But I think you start trying to lure Florida State in and try and seal the deal on Notre Dame.
I mean, because you look at the SEC's next move, what are they going to do? They're going to go after schools in the same freaking footprint they're already in. They're not increasing their freaking TV ad revenue at all. They're getting the same eyes over and over again. I mean, what are the networks going to say? You're not increasing your footprint. It's staying the same.
Yeah, pretty much. And, I think it is interesting that, when you look at this, you've got 2 teams essentially now in this college football playoff. There's 2 teams from the Big Ten in Washington and Michigan, and then there's 2 teams from the SEC, and that's where this is going. Okay, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's where this is going. And I got to be honest with you. On Friday night, I'm watching this Pac-12 championship game, and I was a little bit sad because I've been a fan of the Pac-12, and especially. It's sad to me because of how great from top to bottom this conference was this year. And to see it be the last year of the conference, it kind of saddened me just to see it go. But I get it. That's where we're going. It doesn't really matter what Nate thinks. So we're going to push on. But it just kind of made me sad that the Pac-12 was over and that it kind of ended. It's weird to me that it ended on probably one of the best top to bottom Pac-12, conferences that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, you agree with that?
By far. 100. I mean, top to bottom. I mean, because for a long time, it was always USC and somebody else and 8 other teams. Now you saw real depth. I mean, who thought Cal and Arizona were going to be as good as they were? Wow. I mean, nobody did.
No, Arizona was, one of the biggest surprise teams of all.
Yeah.
And then you think about, at the beginning of the season, people were all over Dion and Colorado, and they ended up being one of the worst teams in the conference.
But he's keeping receipts. Remember, he's still keeping receipts.
Yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot from old Dion the last few weeks. Have you?
Yeah, no, not much. Well, I mean, he's losing a few recruits right now, too, as well. So.
Yeah, a couple of important positions too, which is interesting. But I think that's where we're going, and I kind of got us off on a tangent here with the conference alignment. But that's big news in college football. So whatever. Let's go down to our next topic though, because we've got the playoff set here. We kind of know what's happening with that. We talked about our conference championships. Any of the other games kind of stick out to you? I mean, we saw SMU knock off Tulane. A lot of people kind of expected that. Were there any other games that really stuck out to you that we haven't discussed?
That Conference USA championship game was freaking nuts. I mean, Liberty put up 712 offensive yards against the Jerry Kill defense, which just says something. I mean, what Jamie Chadwell has done there is amazing. Caden Salter doesn't get near the credit he deserves nationally, and I really take my hat off to that program because Jamie Chadwell has taken that program to another level that even Hugh Freeze had. And there was talk that he was going to get the job at Mississippi State, and he's perfectly fine waiting until a better opportunity arises. So it's going to be interesting what's going to tickle Jamie Chadwell's fancy and what's going to get him out of Lynchburg, Virginia. But now you got the Liberty Flames going up against the Oregon Ducks in the Fiesta Bowl.
That's what I was just about to tell you or ask you was, they do all this. They show out in the conference championship game, and what's their reward? Going to a big time bowl game, but having to play a pissed off Oregon team.
Yeah.
Whose only 2 losses were to undefeated Washington. How can Liberty even come close to keeping up with Oregon?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I want to believe so, but I just don't see it. I mean, they defensively just can't handle that offense, especially Bo Nix and Bucky Irving.
No, I agree. But we've talked about college football now. We love the game. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about it. We like to discuss the what happens on the field, because that's really to me that's what makes college football entertaining, is watching these teams battle it out, the strategy, the coaching, the effort from these kids. As you sent to me that I think it was you that sent it to me, the kid from Iowa that took off the I think it was a walk-on and chased that Michigan player down. I mean, that's what college football is all about.
Yeah.
And then, we have what went down today with the portal opening. And we were talking off air about the names, the list. We were just talking quarterbacks. And I got to tell you, folks, it's disgusting, the amount of quarterbacks that are in there. And this is what we were concerned about. This is what bothered us from the beginning, the lack of restriction across the board. I have no problem with kids being allowed to transfer. I have no problem with a kid, coach leaving, or maybe a kid just not fitting in with the offense, or, wanting to move back closer to home, whatever the case may be. I have no problem with kids being allowed to transfer, but we just talked about the number of guys that are on their 3rd school, some 4th school, but Cam Ward, DJ Ugalele, Dylan Gabriel, Tyler Buckner, Drew Payne, Max Johnson, Riley Leonard.
Not Riley Leonard.
Not Riley Leonard. Yeah, that's only 2, Duke to Notre Dame, but Max Johnson was the last one on my list, who's now at their 3rd school.
Jordan McLeod. McLeod's going on his 4th school. 4.
That to me is just disgusting. I mean,
Hank Brockmeyer, Jerry Bohannon. I mean, after a while, at least, hey, I do want to say to a person that just is leaving his 4th school, JT Daniels, congratulations on ending your career at UCLA or USC, Georgia, Virginia, and Rice. West Virginia.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to me that he announced his retirement. That to me shows you right there that you've been in too many teams and you've been playing college football too long if you have a press conference and announce your retirement. I mean, I feel horrible for the guy. I didn't know he had that many concussions because I kind of lost track of him after like Team 6. But, it's a testament to what a horrible state of affairs we are in, that these kids are retiring from college football after their 5th team. It's disgusting. But it is interesting to talk about because we've already had some kids on the move. Let's talk about the guys that have already committed already, because there's only a few. And one is what we just mentioned, Riley Leonard. He went from Duke to Notre Dame. Another one is Will Rogers, who is going from Mississippi State to Washington. And who else am I forgetting?
Aiden Childs from Oregon State's going to play for Jonathan Smith again at Michigan State. This is a big get. Downey, California, 4-star kid. This is a really big get for the Spartans.
Do you think that ends DJU's possibility that DJU goes to Michigan State?
I think it does.
I do too. I think a lot of people thought he was going to follow Coach Smith, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I was shocked as soon as Dante Moore came on the market. I thought Dante Moore was going to be the target since he's a Detroit kid. Somehow, right off the bat, Aiden Childs.
So where does DJU go?
Great question. I can't. For the life of me, I can't figure it out. I mean, a spot that I think would be a good fit for him would be in Fayetteville with Bobby Petrino as his offensive coordinator. They kind of fit. I mean, there's just kind of a fit there between those two. But I really don't know. I mean, heck, Brock Vandergriff. I mean, how long is that kid playing at Georgia? And oh, shocking, he's going to play for Kentucky. Another transfer starting for the Wildcats. Didn't see that one coming whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, they love the transfer portal. I mean, they got Will Levis, they got Devin Leary, and now, once again, they're hitting the portal. And I get that, but I still think there's a lot to be desired as far as developing, your own quarterback, because you'll get to have him for more than one season.
Yeah.
So I just think that means something. Spencer Petras, as we mentioned, he's going to Utah State. We just talked about Max Johnson, who's going to North Carolina. What do you think about Max Johnson? I was kind of impressed with him at times for Texas A&M, but he just never seemed to be able to put it all together. Do you feel like he can, start at UNC even?
I do. I really do. I never thought he truly ever had an opportunity. It was always like he had a chance to go in and play cleanup ball, but never really given the reins to really run the offense. In North Carolina, he's going to start. I mean, there's little doubt in my mind he will be the guy next year. And Mac Brown's going to need him. I mean, Drake May is probably going pro. So, I mean, because I'm guessing his draft stock hit a little bit, but I don't see him getting past pick 15. Do you?
No. I think he is a first-round pick, and I think if you're a first-round pick, you've got to go.
Absolutely.
But we've got to talk about the two biggest names of the day, at least in my opinion, and one is Dylan Gabriel, another guy who's going to be on his third school. I didn't mention him a minute ago because I wanted to talk about him now. Why is he leaving Oklahoma? I mean, what do you think the reasoning is for him leaving Oklahoma? I mean, do you think it's money? I just can't really. I mean, it seemed like he left Central Florida. I kind of understood that coaching change, whatever. Getting an opportunity to go to a blue blood like Oklahoma. He goes there last year. They go 6-6, but are actually a lot closer than people thought. And then this year really stepped it up big time, beat Texas, finished the year 10-2, and now he's bolting. Like, why is he leaving Oklahoma in your mind?
I think the answer is two words, and I can even predict the school he's going to go to.
Give it to me.
Jeff Lebby. He's going to Mississippi State because he got recruited by him at UCF. He played for him again at Oklahoma, and now he's the head coach at Mississippi State. I think that's a relationship issue. I think he's going to be in Starkville lining up at quarterback, and he'll be playing the Egg Bowl against Lane next year.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks. Dylan Gabriel to Mississippi State, according to James B. I just don't see how that – I get the relationship part of it, but I just feel like Oklahoma's a place where if you can build on that 10-2 and then you're going to the SEC as well, I mean, that's just a great place to showcase your abilities. I mean, I know Mississippi State's in the SEC, but I don't see Mississippi State winning the SEC championship. Do you?
No, but I mean, honestly, the connection point between an OC, especially going back to his recruitment, I think there's just a great relationship between the two of them. I'm not sure if it's been named yet, but Seth Luttrell, it looks like he's going to become that new OC over in Oklahoma. Do they have that relationship? I mean, having that relationship between your OC and quarterback is vital. And Lebby and he have known each other for years. So,
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Just to me, seems like kind of a step backwards as far as program goes. Oklahoma, is one of the tried and truest programs in all of college football, and you're right there on the cusp, in my opinion. At 10-2,
Yeah.
you get another year of the coach, installing his defense and getting Venables, getting his guys, which he started to do this year, playing where he wants them to play. I feel like Oklahoma, was close, but now they're going to have to start all over at quarterback, and I feel like they may reach into the portal to get somebody for their team. Do you feel that?
I don't. And there's a name out there that a lot of Oklahoma fans are big on. That's a guy named Jackson Arnold out of Texas. This kid is good, really good. And you'd have probably heard a little bit more about him if a certain Arch Manning didn't go to Texas. He kind of got left under the rug a little bit, but this kid's got real talent. And there were a lot of people thinking that he could have overtaken Dylan Gabriel this season if things went sideways. But Gabriel hung on, and look where they're at today. I think Jackson Arnold's going to be starting behind center next year in Norman.
All right, we'll see. I still think they may add somebody just so they have a veteran.
Yeah.
It's weird to say this because now we're talking about veteran college players, but you need somebody there in case your quarterback goes down. Look what happened to Florida State. If they had somebody from the portal sitting there, backing Jordan Travis up, maybe they would be in the playoff. But interesting to talk about Dylan Gabriel. Obviously, I don't want to talk about this, but this is where we're going. Kyle McCord entered his name into the portal today, and there's been a number of people speculating on why he's in there. I've heard that the Ohio State fans drove him to the portal. That is something I could certainly believe because the 15 percenters, as Herbie calls them, are loud and they are obnoxious. And these kids, I know they try and block some of this noise out, but I know it gets through. And, basically what happened was, as you know, and as everybody knows, he got the blame for the loss and he got no credit for the 11 wins. You can't blame this kid for the one loss and then give him no credit for the 11 wins. But that's basically what's happened. So, James, I ask you, A, do you think that's the fans had anything to do with him hitting the portal? Or B, do you think it's think there's other reports that Ryan Day spoke to him and his dad, and they asked him if he was going to be the guaranteed starter for next year, and Ryan Day said, he did say this at his press conference that every position's open and every year it's a competition, but I just have a hard time believing that he told McCord to get the F out, which is another report. And I don't believe that. Why would you groom him and play him all year and give him every goddamn snap if you weren't going to bring him back? I don't know. You tell me. What's the deal?
First of all, I call crap that he basically told him to hit the road.
I mean,
no coach in their freaking right mind would ever do that because it would ruin credibility on the recruiting trail. Honestly, you're Ohio State. And quite frankly, if this is Georgia, Bama, unless you are a Heisman Trophy candidate, I'm sorry, your job's up. Your job is always up for grant. It is always up. Because if somebody behind you is better, guess what? They're going to play his ass. They're going to, because guess what? It's about wins and losses at the end of the day. And wouldn't you want to have the person behind you pushing you to be better? There should be nothing guaranteed in life, ever. And what we're seeing now at this damn transfer portal, and I get why it's there, but this is crazy that the first sign of any kind of controversy, what do these guys do? They run for the hills.
Yeah, that's
what? In real life, what's going to happen? Something's going to happen to your work. Something's going to happen to your family. You're going to run to the transfer portal then too as well?
Yeah, and that to me is what's confusing because he came to Ohio State. He waited for his chance behind C.J. Stroud for 2 years. Then it's an open competition. He wins the competition. He goes 11-1, beats out Devin McCord. Devin Brown. I keep calling him Devin McCourt. He beats out Devin Brown. He wins 11 games. And now he's done. I mean, I don't know, man. That just, to me, it doesn't feel like the same guy. I mean, this is a guy who stuck it out, fought the good fight, won the job, and then kept the job all year. And now he's bolting. I mean, where are you going to go is my question. Where's he going to go where he's going to have a better chance to win a national championship? Where's he going to go where they're just going to hand him the job? I mean, there's schools that will just hand him the job. I know that. But there's no school like Ohio State that's just going to hand him the job. Do you think?
No, not at all. I mean, the only way he's going to get handed a job is if he goes group of 5. Yeah. And Steve Belisari said it multiple times on this show. A quarterback gets way too much credit and way too much blame. And it is the best quote in the world. Because guess what? Quarterback can't throw himself the ball. Quarterback can't block for himself. And hell, unless you're Steve Belisari in the pros, quarterback doesn't play defense either. So he can only manage the game. And he gets way too much blame and credit depending on what's going on. It wasn't his fault in the Michigan game that his offensive line was giving up blocks.
Yeah,
they were blitzing all the time. I mean, I thought he did the best with what he could. Yeah, did he have one bad pass? Yeah, but name me a quarterback who hasn't.
Yeah, no, I mean, that first interception was on him for sure. That last one down the stretch was not. And, the defense, which I, loved all year long and played really well, couldn't get a stop against Michigan in that second half. And they could have gotten the ball back to them several times and given McCord more chances. The other thing is, everybody wants to criticize the quarterback and they want to criticize, McCord, but they don't really want to ever touch on the Brian Hartline aspect of this. What do we got? Julian Fleming's another guy who hit the portal today. Where the F has he been? Because that guy was the number 1 player in the entire country, and I've seen him catch about 9 balls in his goddamn career at Ohio State. So where's the development of him been? I haven't seen that, and it would have been nice to have a third option at the wide receiver position, and they really, really didn't ever have that. And Marv was kind of the focus. Mecca got banged up, and that definitely didn't help McCord as we went through. But good luck to the kid. I hope he does well. I hope he goes somewhere and has success. But this is like you just said. I don't like where this is going. Somebody's mean to you. Somebody wants to bring in competition for you, and instead of somebody like Milroe gutting it out and getting his job, fighting to get his job back, and then leading them to the promised land, it's no, I'm good, man. I'm bouncing.
Well, I don't think Ohio State fans appreciate what they've had in recent history between Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, and C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, that's 3 of the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen.
Back to back. When's the last school that's had 3 back-to-back first-round draft choice quarterbacks?
Yeah, I don't know. And if you go back even before that, we're talking about a team that had Braxton Miller, who was a damn good college quarterback. If you recall, go back to 2014, 2014, 2015, Braxton Miller was supposed to be the starter. He hurts his shoulder. They decide to move it, use him at wide receivers because he can't throw the football. They start JT Barrett. He goes, takes him to, the promised land. Then he breaks his leg or his foot in the game. And then Cardell Jones comes in, drops 59 on Wisconsin, and then wins the national championship by beating Bama and Oregon. So, you got all those guys to think about too. Braxton Miller, JT Barrett, Cardell Jones, and then we go to Haskins, and then we go, Joe Burrow was there also. So, they've had their fill of quarterbacks, and, that's what, I wanted to get to next. Who is the starter at Ohio State next year? Is it somebody that's already on the roster. And Devin Brown is it. A lot of people are liking this Lincoln Kleinholtz kid, and other people think Air Noland will just come in and start right away because he's enrolling early and he's going to start practicing with them now. Who do you think, James?
Right now you got to pencil in Devin Brown to be the starting quarterback, but honestly, I mean, you got to remember this is just the first transfer window. There's yet again another one, and we may not even know who that person that could jump in the portal at the last moment, and because there's certain talk of a certain individual in Austin, Texas, who may jump in the portal too as well. And watch the insanity ensue on that freaking transfer recruitment. Because if he's available and Ohio State has a chance to get him, yeah, they kind of fit together.
You talking about Malik Murphy?
No, I'm talking about, yeah. I don't even think we have to name the name. That's how, I mean, granted, hey, if Malik Murphy's out there, if I'm Ohio State, that's my guy.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's my guy.
I like Malik Murphy. In fact,
I like him a lot.
He reminds me of a type of quarterback I would like to see, in Columbus, and I think that would be a good fit there. But like you said, there's going to be more guys that hit the portal. This was day one here, where you can officially start moving schools, and I think we're going to see more and more guys. Start to sign up, and then the dominoes will fall after that. It's amazing to me, the Max Brown kid who just got to start when Graham Mertz went down at Florida, he's in the portal. It's like, wait, dude, you just got to play, you put some, decent game on tape and now you're out. Like, I'm so confused by all of this. I don't know what to make of it, but we just kind of hit on the quarterbacks. Let's talk about some of the other players that are in the portal, and what I mean by that is some of the other positions. I just saw that Walter Nolan hit the portal from Texas A&M. That doesn't shock me. I'm surprised he lasted as long at Texas A&M as he did, but he was the number 1 overall player. He played for a year here in Knoxville. That kid's gone. We just mentioned Julian Fleming. He's out. Good luck with him. But there's going to be a ton of guys in this portal. Who else that's already signed their name up that sticks out to you that I haven't mentioned?
That's really about it. I think it's going to get a little crazier before it's all said and done, especially when new coaches get brought in, because you could have a new coach come in, players really signed up and delivered, and then sits down with the coach and realizes, hell, I'm just not a good fit here. You're going to see that happen more times than not. And man, I don't know where the hell this is going to go, but it's going to be interesting really quick. What about the linebacker from Maryland? Who did you see he announced today? I thought that was really interesting. He's legit. I mean, there's one thing about Maryland is they're always had some issues on the line of scrimmage, but their linebackers and specialty guys are fast as hell. And that he's going to be an interesting one to go after, kind of in the same breath of, remember Chance Campbell after he transferred out from Maryland and went to Ole Miss. Yeah. He reminds me a lot in that respect. Not as hard a hitter, but covers sideline to sideline really well.
Yeah, and I'm talking about Jay-Sean Barham is his name. And, he's going to be a kid that's going to be coveted. I mean, he really, really stepped up this past year. He's 6'4", he's 233. He's from St. Francis Academy in Maryland. So that's a pretty solid high school. He had 95 tackles this year. I believe he had 7 sacks as well. So he's a kind of a tweener dude that I think could play on the inside as well as maybe, become a pass rusher to boot. So I like this kid a lot. And I think there's going to be some people looking for him for sure.
A kid that kind of hasn't been talked about very much, but is an offensive lineman at North Dakota. Here, bear with me. Why, Easton Kilty, he actually went to high school in small town in Wisconsin, probably about 2 hours away from me. The kid's got really good size, 6'5", 305 tackle. I could see this kid being very coveted because usually look at that offensive line transfer portal. It kind of sucks. And this is a kid I think you can plug and play. And I think he's going to be one of the top 50 kids in the transfer portal. And when you get offensive line depth, this is the guy who I think is going to get some real play.
Yeah, I mean, offensive line is the one position that is not stock full in the portal just because there's not that many guys that are 6'6", 6'7", 300 plus pounds that can move. And that, I mean, we saw that last year because that's where the problem started for Ohio State in my mind and your mind and Mark Givler's mind, who we had on from Buckeye Huddle. They didn't replace Paris Johnson and they didn't replace DeJuan Jones. I mean, they went out and got Simmons from San Diego State. He actually played all right. But he wasn't to the level of Paris Johnson Jr. He wasn't to the level of DeJuan Jones. And I think that's where the problem started with the Buckeyes. Couple more names to throw at you real quick here, and then I want to end on another note. But they got Grayson McCall in the portal. That's the kid from Coastal who has played a lot of football. What do you think about him? And do you think, is he a kid that can go to a big-time blue-chip program and maybe play?
Yeah, I do. He was a kid that was being talked about when Jamie Chadwell left when he left CC to go to Liberty. I could see him in a Power 5 program. He's just got a good head on his shoulders. And
a lot of experience, too.
Yeah, I mean, the kid can win. I mean, there's some programs in my mind I would consider him. Honestly, Michigan would be a good place for him to look at. I mean, because McCarthy's what now, a junior or senior, right?
I know this was at least his third year. So I think he'll be a senior next year, and he's certainly not going to the NFL. So,
no.
But
some Power 5 program's going to take a run at Grayson McCall.
I agree. What about Will Howard from Kansas State?
They're both kind of the same guy because I both don't see him having a pro career, but they're going to make too much money in NIL. That would be stupid for them to go pro because they'll take a pay cut. I could see Will Howard going somewhere. Is he going to win games for you? No, but he's not going to lose them. He's not going to be one of those guys that's going to be a great 2-minute guy. They've got a kid backing him up that I think was going to start ahead of him at some point, and he wanted to make sure he got guaranteed playing time. I mean, he could end up, honestly, at a Mountain West school like Colorado State or something like that, too.
Yeah, and last name for you. This is a kid from Miami, Tyler Van Dyke. I mean, this guy was a preseason Heisman favorite, to contend for it. He showed some flashes, but just never was able to really deliver. Was that his fault? Is that, Mario Cristobal's fault? Is that, the offensive coordinator's fault? I don't know. But what do you think about this kid as a quarterback? And I'm talking about Tyler Van Dyke from the Canes.
Mario Cristobal found a way to make Justin Herbert at Oregon look a lot less than what we saw in the NFL. I think Tyler Van Dyke has got to go to a system that you have an OC rebuild him between the years, because I think his biggest problem is confidence. I think the ability absolutely is there. The confidence is shot.
Yeah.
And he needed a new environment to reinvigorate himself. I mean, hell, we talked about a quarterback this year that was out in Corvallis that looked significantly better than he did when he was playing in Clemson, South Carolina.
Yeah, and that was due to scheme. I think that was due to the offensive line that he had in front of him. And I think it was due to him regaining his confidence, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
It'd be interesting to see where he ends up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an interesting name. And then we already mentioned Dante Moore. I'm interested to see where he goes. I felt like, this is another one where he goes to UCLA. He gets to start, quite a bit and play, considerable time. And now he's out. Like, this is what I don't understand. It's not like he was never going to get to play again or something. So why is he jetting? I mean, you thought Chip Kelly was going to be gone. I didn't. he's still there. So why does this kid leave?
Yeah, this is
It's a head scratcher.
It is. I mean, honestly, a good fit for him would be, I mean, I know he's a Detroit kid, and I know Michigan fans wanted him a lot, but he doesn't fit in Ann Arbor unless Harbaugh leaves and whoever comes in does a new offense. I think he'd be really good up in Eugene playing for Dan Lanning in Oregon.
Yeah, I like that fit.
I mean, him and Bucky Irving together would be phenomenal.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to get somebody because Bo Nix is on year 9, and he's gonna have to move on whether he likes it or not.
Is he a doctor now?
I think so. Jaden Daniels too. I would expect Jaden Daniels to go to the NFL, wouldn't you?
I would.
So who's LSU? Who's LSU's quarterback next year?
Well, I mean, Walker Howard's gone. Crap. That's a great question. Who does? Because they had some backups there that were actually fairly good, but they're going to look in the portal too as well. That would shock me in the least.
That's my point. I think they're really going to go in the portal and grab somebody to at least come in and compete.
Well, is KJ Jefferson? What is he doing right now? Is he in? Is he out? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I think Petrino's going to want his own dude. In my personal opinion, and that to me, I think this says a lot though about the head coach bringing in this guy who used to be the head coach there to be the offensive coordinator. I mean, I feel like he's doing everything and anything he can to make this program better, including bringing in some guy that a lot of fans may want to be the head coach.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
Garrett Nussmeier is the backup at LSU. I think, they're going to try to bring somebody in. But honestly, Garrett Nussmeier's a good quarterback. He's
all right. He's all right. But I don't think they're going to entrust the program, to him. I mean, especially after how important the quarterback position was to LSU having any type of success this year. I think they're going to, definitely have their, ears to the ground, so to speak. And Cam Ward actually, to me, would seem like a fit at LSU. Not that he's Jaden Daniels, but I could see him, doing some of those things.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, I could. There's something I could see with that. I mean, the thing is, so you look at LSU. They had a lot of injuries on that defense, especially in the secondary.
Yeah.
But their defense can't get that much worse. I mean, I feel bad for Harold Perkins because it was like Harold Perkins and 10 other guys.
Yeah.
It's got to get somewhat better.
Yeah, it can't go downhill. So lastly, before we get out of here, a lot of these teams, are going to essentially meaningless bowl games. And I'm talking about Georgia and Florida State now, and even Oregon, Ohio State, and is going to be playing Missouri. I don't expect many of the Buckeyes to play in this game. And I want to get your feeling on the opt-outs. Do you feel like that's going to, go away a little bit with the 12-team playoff next year? I mean, do you think that solves this opt-out? What do you want to call it? A breakout? What's the word I'm looking for?
The opt-out rush.
The opt-out outbreak.
Yeah, I want to say no, but common sense tells me if you're an 11 seed and you think in your head you're not going to win a national championship, there's going to be guys that are even in the 12 team, they're going to opt out. Yeah. I could see it. I could see it already.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be a lot of people sitting out of this bowl game. I mean, think about it last year. Jackson Smith and Jigba didn't even play in the national championship semifinal. Travion Henderson, he said he was out. I mean, I know that both of those guys claimed injury, but let's be honest. They both said they weren't going to play at the beginning of December.
Yeah.
And the game was 4 weeks later, and they really could have used Jackson Smith and Jigba in that game. So breaking news, someone just sent this to me. It was released at 7:06. The Heisman Trophy finalists are announced. LSU's Jaden Daniels, no surprise there. Oregon's Bo Nix. Washington's Michael Penix. and Marvin Harrison Jr. are all going to be in New York.
How much you want to bet? That's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I could see Penix winning it, honestly, or at least coming in second.
Yeah, I could see that.
So, but nothing real shocking there. We thought Milroe might get in, maybe a little too late. It didn't have the entire body of work, but I'm okay with that list. Are you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that list. I mean, I still think Jaden Daniels is going to win it, and I think it's going to be by a good margin too.
Yeah, I said that about 4 weeks ago when I watched that Florida game. I was like, buddy, you got to get – I gave him that trophy that night. I was just like, come on, this is ridiculous. I know Florida isn't what they used to be and isn't a top-tier program, but they had some pretty highly rated recruits out of high school out there in that field, and they were getting boat raced. By Jaden Daniels. So, all right. Well, we got that news that just came out as far as the Heisman goes, and we're going to have to watch this portal because it, as much as it pisses me off, it is still kind of interesting to see. It's like free agency without having to, with no salary cap. It's like free agency with no salary cap, you know?
The Walter Scott or Walter Nolan recruitment is going to be crazy. Yeah. Because, I mean, there's a whole host of schools I think that should be all in on him because he's a difference maker.
His recruitment out of high school was crazy. He went to like 3 different high schools, including Powell High School right here in town. He won a state championship for them, although my high school beat them in a game. But they still, in their division, went on and won the state championship. Jeremy Pruitt basically got arrested for all the money that he gave them to try and get him to Tennessee and didn't even go there. They were talking they spent $36,000 the weekend that he came for his unofficial visit, and then he didn't even go here. So, you know, they were throwing around big time buku bucks. Lots of schools were trying to get him signed up in the first place. So it'll be crazy to see what they shell out this time.
Maybe if he would have used an Arby's bag or a Wendy's bag to put for the $36,000, that would have been a better case. But
I think he did. That was the whole thing. It was McDonald's bag, and he made his pregnant.
I know
wife.
It was McDonald's, but maybe if it was an Arby's or Wendy's or somebody else, it could have gotten Walter Nolan to stay home.
Do they give a shit what kind of bag it is? I mean, I don't think so. It's what's inside the bag that counts, bro. It ain't the bag. But I still will never forget that, you know, sending your pregnant wife out to deliver cash to these kids under the table, both literally and figuratively.
And she worked in compliance. Like, she knows the rules, and she's the one breaking them.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is and I listened to Hartstock today, which, God, I think I dislike that guy more each time I listen to him, but he did have a good point in that the portal's not really good for everybody. Okay. Because what happens is you go to these schools, all these NIL deals are 1-year deals, right? And you go to a school and you don't play up to the level that you're supposed to play, and they cut the teat off. I mean, they pull it out of your mouth and they're like, bye, bro. You know, back in the day, you committed to a school, you went there, even if you sucked, you got to stay there and be the backup.
Yeah.
You got to continue to get the money that the alumni stuck in your pockets. You got to get your degree paid for. You got to live in the dorms. You got to get hot chicks, get drunk at the bars, whatever. Now it ain't like that, bro. You come in on a 1-year NIL deal from the portal and you suck, you get, I mean, hell, even if you don't suck, if you just don't win a national championship like Kyle McCord, they could kick your ass to the curb. And I think some of these kids are learning a hard reality real quick, James.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here. But lots of stuff to discuss today. We broke down the playoff. We broke down the portal. And it's been a crazy day in college football. And it's just going to get crazier because more and more of these kids are going to get in this portal, and it's going to change the whole landscape of it's just going to start being like college basketball, where you don't know who the starters are going to be from year to year.
when you've got guys putting out announcements they're staying in school when you never even thought they were going to even thinking about transferring,
Yeah.
that's when you know you've got an issue.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and that's one thing they were talking about, that I heard a lot of people talking about today was how many kids go in the portal is a testament to your culture, and how many kids opt out of the bowl game is a testament to culture. I don't think that's true. I think that this is the way that our game works now. And, you look at all these kids, I think there's 7 now already, or 8 from Ohio State that have entered the portal. Well, a lot of them just aren't going to get on the field. I mean, Julian Fleming's not going to play next year. Evan Pryor has never gotten on the field at running back. He was I think he was the number 138 prospect overall in 2021. And he's never gotten a meaningful carry on the football field. So, these guys, I have no problem with these guys going somewhere else to go play when they're not going to get to play where they're at. I think that, but that kills depth, James.
Yeah.
Which is then, once again, a problem. So that's why you got to keep bringing in top 5 recruiting classes like Georgia, Ohio State, Bama, and some of these other schools do, because you got to keep them coming in when they're rolling out.
Absolutely.
All right, bud. You keep your chin up. And I will talk to you real soon. Okay, bud?
All right, man. We'll see you then.
All right, Man Coverage, December 4, 2023, signing out. Be sure to go to YouTube, Man Coverage 2075, and download any shows that you missed, like and subscribe.